Hello everyone. Thanks for coming back to the channel or just checking us out for the first time. But I want to talk to you a little bit today about skill building and the types of videos we'll try to put on this channel to allow you to build your skills that may be necessary when you're not at a training event or with the group doing training, and just different types of things you can do on your own with a couple other people, or by yourself, with family or whatever at home. And this one's going to be, as you can see, we got a lot of stuff laid out here. It kind of doesn't make sense. But this is for an observation skill building exercise. What you do is you gather this variety of items, whatever you want. It doesn't have to be anything in particular. Generally in the military, they'll be military specific, but really what we're trying to do here is build observation skills. So we're just getting a variety. We've got 12 items here. You can make it 8, 6, start off at 4, whatever, depending on where you think your skill level is at, or the person who is training, and what you think they'll do. But what we're going to do with these is put these out in an area to observe and see if we can identify them from a distance and through optics. And this is a skill building on identifying, attention to detail, and also using your optics or using your binoculars in the best way, and understanding how to use them as you can. What you want to do is you want to set up a parameters for an area, left and right lateral limit. So you know it's best, obviously you don't have to have somebody set it up for you, or you set it up for somebody else so that you don't know where everything's at. But you set up an area with the left and right lateral limit and place the objects in that area as visible or as invisible as you can get, or as you want to accomplish the goal, or based on your skill level, and see if you can identify them within a designated time limit using optics and binoculars. It can be 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, depending on how detailed and how many objects you have out there. Usually about 25 meters is good for small objects like this to get away. Obviously, larger objects you probably want to get a little further away, and depending on how camouflaged you want things to be. But we'll go out here and set things up and take a look and see what it looks like. So I found my area that I want to use, and I'll use this bush right here as my left lateral limit. And I'll tell the individual, these yellow flowers, that's your left lateral limit. And we can place the objects anywhere, and you can use deep, you know, a far boundary as well. Don't go beyond that, say that green foliage right there, or even as far back as, say, that pinion right there, depending on how good your optics are and what you're viewing. But set them a depth limit if you're not on a hillside or not on something that has a definite background. You want to get out things like this that might be in the way, that might confuse your objective, or things like this. If you're in a public area like this, so get a skull tin or something, the grizz. So you want to get things like that out of your area that can be confused with your objects you actually want them to view. And then I'll come and find the right lateral limit, and I'll say, this rock right here is your right lateral limit. And we'll place our objects within there. So again, depending on the ability of my person to view, I can just place them out in the open like that. Something like a zip tie, kind of conspicuous maybe, or inconspicuous. Something a little larger. You know, you'd be surprised how hard it is to observe some of this stuff when it's not moving, even if it's not hidden. It could be out like that, and they may even have a hard time observing it depending on the angle of it. You know, like this, it may be more observable as headphones, whereas like that, it may be hard to describe. But can they identify, hey, I got a green object with a black band or something? It's good to get skills like that, just so you can describe what you see, even though you may not be able to identify it. So oftentimes perspective is everything. You know, do you want them to be able to identify it as a $5 bill, or is it a dollar bill? Point your flashlight, do they see the reflection off of the lens, or do you stand it straight up, you know, to identify If you got good optics, you expect them to be able to read mag light on there, depending on what you're using. Same with toothpaste. I've got lettering and writing on there. It's going to be back behind. I need to understand it's going to be back behind that for them, so put it in a place to where how I want them to perceive it. It could be at an angle sideways. Say a blade like this, I could have open or closed. Could be a challenge. Maybe if it's all the way open, they identify it as a fixed blade knife instead of a closing lock blade or something. So again, how much information do you want to get out? What's your expected goal? That's a toughie right there. You're going to be looking at it from this angle right here. That would be pretty tough. And coming to the foreground, I've got objects back here behind me. And if you'd be surprised, somebody has something right up front. They might not even see the thing right in front of them. It's maybe like a shadow, but it seems too close and it's not camouflaged. It might not even stick out to them. So just some hints and tricks on things. Maybe you put something out in the open, not even on a bush or anything. MRE spoon in the open. Perception. What does it look like? Do they appear as a stick, or does it appear as an MRE spoon, but it's out in the open? Usually when you're doing scanning techniques, you go from cover and conceal positions, and you overlook things right out in the open. Same thing with a bullet. It could be right out in the open. Maybe you expect them to identify caliber, size, or maybe it doesn't even identify. Maybe set in a more challenging position. Just use your imagination, and you want to challenge the people. Don't make it impossible for them. But the more experience you get at it, just to give you some ideas of how challenging it can be. Notebook. Don't open the notebook and expect them to read the page, depending on what our skill level is. Once again, I can put it camouflaged, open, closed. Don't want them to read. If you can read that with your optics, that should go in your description. Mead 5-star notebook, about palm sized, yellow, and blue, and red tabs, etc. As descriptive as possible is always better. And then finally, we've got a boonie cover, which obviously it's camouflage. We could make it really challenging and put it in some cover, or we could, again, you set it right out in the open to see, maybe as a beginner, can they identify it? Do they even recognize it as a boonie cover out there or whatever? So here we are back from our observation area. Getting my left lateral limit. I got my right lateral limit with the rock, and my objects are all in between there. And I'm about 10 meters away, not even from that first pouch, that black pouch I put up in the foreground. And with optics, I'd be, if I started about 20 meters back. Let's back up. And that's kind of what it would look like. It's best to get in the habit of getting in a good prone position. So you want to have something, if you got any obstacles, clear them out of the way so they can be in a good prone or supported position, and start looking for those items. So you want to make sure before you place things out, perspective of the viewer, that at least give them the option of, we're not dealing with trainees here. Usually with trainees and stuff, you'd mandatory in the prone, you can't move around. But obviously, the situation, the training is paramount. We're not necessarily worrying so much about the discipline side of the misery of it, of being in the prone and stuff. But if you got a scout unit you want to put together, maybe you do want to do that. But getting in the up in the kneeling and have them, if you need to stand up, hey, no problem. But it's better if they stay from one perspective, so they can describe that on their sheet that they're going to write this down on, which we'll go into next, about how to report on these things. But I can see the glare off my headphones from here. I can see the dollar bill, $5 bill. I got my white from the toothpaste, so I know what things are kind of in the open. I can see I got my MRE spoon. I can see. Now I can decide, Don't want to conceal those more? Hey, you know, that's out in the open enough to where they can see it. With the optics, they can describe it or whatever. So an observation skill. Let's go look at how we would write this down. So what we prepare to record our observation is just real simple. You want to annotate describe what it is: size, shape, color, condition. So, like our dollar bill, Federal Reserve note, size $5 bill, you know, dollar size. You know, estimate your. If you want to get real detailed, you know, 5 inches by 3.5 inches. Shaped, you know, rectangle. Color and condition, green and white. You know, appears to be. Well, you got a key word here when you talk about describing things, especially for training people to be, you know, trained observers or reporters. Appears to be, not making assumptions. You know, describe what it's like the dollar bill appears to be serviceable, it's all in one piece, it'll work for what you want it for, but it could be a counterfeit and won't work for nothing. Appears to be is like a way of covering your butt on whether or not it's actually what you think it is. But it's something used like in the toothpaste container. Description: toothpaste, small. Describe, you know, 3 inches long, half inch diameter, 2 inch diameter, shaped like a toothpaste container, white and red. Colgate toothpaste, appears to be serviceable. Appears to be something that it appears that it'll work. It doesn't. If the cap's on, if the cap was missing, maybe it's unserviceable. Maybe it appears to be used. Maybe, you know, it's the one we had was full, but maybe if it was all squeezed out and flat, it appears to be used. For example, on and on. So just something to get you to write down. You know, if you don't want to do write down, if you just want people to get used to doing it verbally, you can have people repeat it back to you verbally after you get done doing the drill. And you want to limit the time you have to report if you do it that way. But if you do it rewriting, you can have them write it all down as they're observing in that 10, 20, 30-minute time frame. They can be writing it down, and when they're done, they're done. If you do it verbally, maybe they make some quick notes and then report to you verbally what they saw, just for an example, depending on what you're trying to do. So that's a skill you can build. I hope everybody finds this useful. We'll talk to you later. Thanks for checking out the Northern Nevada Defense Group. Hope to see you out there.